the researchers and the enablers of their research. Although the investigators are pivotal to carrying on the research at the organizations, but equally important are the stakeholders who support their research. And the European Molecular Biology Organization, or the EMBO, is an organization of which promotes excellence in life sciences in Europe and beyond. The major goals of the organization are to support talented researchers at all stages of their careers and simulate the exchange of scientific information and build a research environment where scientists can achieve their best work. Today, we have Dr. Gerlind Wallon with us, who is the head of the EMBO Young Investigator Network, the EMBO courses, workshops, and co-head of EMBO Global Activities. She's also responsible for Women in Science activities. She has developed the EMBO Laboratory Management courses for leadership development and co-authored studies on the selection processes and the effects of gender on application at EMBO. I welcome you all, and without much delay, I hand over the phone to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Aradita. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Okay, and you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Gerlind Wallon. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Deputy Director and responsible for 2 of our programs. So I'd like to give you a short background on what EMBO is and how we're involved, how you as scientists in India can benefit from our programs. So EMBO is the European Life Sciences Organization with 1,900 leading life scientists recognized for their excellence. We have 1,800 members in Europe and over 150 members worldwide as associate members. 90 of them have received the Nobel Prize. So we have a number of new associate members in India. Of course, I'm sure you're aware of all of them. And of course, also Nobel laureate Venki Ramakrishnan has been a long-standing member of EMBO. We provide funding for the training of scientists at different career stages, and the money we do receive from a 30-member state intergovernmental organization called EMBC. So the EMBC has been put together to support the EMBO program specifically. But it's not only a European organization, as the EU would suggest, but since a couple of years, we also have associate member states and cooperation partners. And India is the first and largest of that. Since 2015, we're working together with the DBT, the Indian government via the DBT, which means that scientists in India are fully eligible for all of the programs that we have. So you are an equal applicant to any of the scientists from Europe who might be applying to our programs. So we also have a policy program which provides information to policymakers, but I will, since this is at the moment not really important for this audience, I'll skip my usual talk about that, and we'll just go over to publishing. We are an academic publisher with 5 different journals that I'm sure most of you will be familiar with. And as an academic publisher, we are particularly interested in developing policies that support and help researchers. So all of our staff at least have a couple of years of experience in scientific research themselves and do know and understand how it looks on the other side. So, for example, we have been pioneering in what we call the transparent review process, which means that every paper that is published with us also has the reviewer reports, the rebuttals, the whatever, all the conversation that went on between the editor and the author. Another new project that I would like, and there are many other things, we're also working on open science, we're working on data storage for the different articles, etc. So we're really at the forefront of that. And a new project is what we call Review Commons, which is an independent peer review platform that you send your paper to before you decide which journal that you want to send to. The advantage of that is, of course, normally when you send your paper to journal 1, maybe rejected after 3, if you're lucky, after having occupied 3 reviewers. You send it to journal number 2, if you're lucky, again, it gets sent to another 3 reviewers, maybe rejected, etc. So before your paper has been accepted, you have the paper has been seen by 9 reviewers. And reviewers, of course, also you, right, on the other side. You're not only an author, you're also a reviewer. That is really a very redundant and redundant way of spending your time, and a waste of time for everybody. So the idea behind this is that you send your paper to Review Commons. It gets reviewed by the same process and the same scientists who would review for EMBO, any of the EMBO journals. And once you have your review back, you can, of course, you can decide which journal. So we have we are associated or collaborate with many other journals, eLife, the PLOS journals, the COB journals, etc., etc. So all many academic publishers, and you can then decide to send your paper with the reviews that you have received to any of these journals, and the editors of these journals have pledged that they will accept the reviews that you have that have been received. Of course, you can address any points that the reviewer has made, make adjustments, you make additional experiments, etc., etc. So this really reduces. So what we have shown in the last year, so this has started last year, at the beginning of the last year, what we have shown that it significantly reduces time to publication, and of course significantly reduces the number of reviewers that are being used in the process of publication. So this is a really pioneering and interesting project, which is also now being supported with the grant from the HHMI. So now let me get to the different programs that we have and of which you can, from which you can benefit. So let me start with the EMBO courses and workshops. EMBO is the largest funder of meetings in the life sciences. We fund about 90 per year, of which a number of which some take place in India. And these meetings come in different flavors. So we have the practical courses, which provide you with hands-on training in new technologies. We have the workshops, which are your usual conferences on the latest development in the life sciences. And there are lecture courses that train PhD students and postdocs with in different scientific topics. And there, with the lecture courses, we have a specific permutation from for India, and I'll get to that in a minute. All of our the special thing about EMBO courses and workshop is that they are indeed bottom-up, which means scientists like you would apply to organize, would apply with their program to organize a meeting or a practical course on their favorite topic, and then a committee decides on the funding. We have a success rate for workshops around 50%, and for practical courses around 80% success rate. So we support these organizers, of course, with substantial basic funding, but also with travel grants, childcare support, and registration fee waivers. And I think for you, it is important to know that there's a especially big part of travel grants for scientists from our associate member states, which means you. So it can be quite affordable for you to come to one of our meetings, even if it takes place in Europe. So please have a look at that. We have another flavor of these meetings, which are called EMBO Symposia. They always take place at the EMBL here in Heidelberg, and they are a top-down affair, which means we have a committee that thinks of new topics that they would like to see run, and they then determine a potential organizer who will then discuss, set the speakers list, etc. These meetings always take place in hybrid format. So so it is at least possible to watch and participate in these meetings from all locations, even if it's difficult to get funding to travel there. I told you about the specific permutation of the lecture courses. They're called India EMBO lecture courses, and we fund them together with the India Alliance. So the India Alliance would provide money for travel grants, childcare, etc., and we pay the main body of support. So as you can see, there are quite a number of these lecture courses taking place in India. And again, we would like to encourage further applications to these. So, of course, during the last couple of years, during the pandemic, conferencing has become very difficult, if not impossible. Well, many of the meetings have been postponed, but a number of meetings have taken place in virtual format. So, of course, going forward and moving out of the pandemic, we were wondering whether there's something that we could have learned from this, because of course it is clear that a scientific talk can be easily shared via the internet, like we are doing this here now. But what else is there in a scientific conference? So we did a study on that. We interviewed a number of people from different walks of different scientific career stages, and I guess not surprisingly, you find out that yes, of course, you can exchange scientific information in a virtual way, but what you really lose is the personal interactions, the additional information that you can get by discussing, having enough time to discuss with the speakers or other colleagues who are working on the similar topic as you are. So all of that is missing when the meetings go virtual. So, but what we did find, as I said, it is possible more people to attend a conference if there is a virtual component to a conference. Because there may be many reasons why people cannot travel to a conference. It may be for budgetary reasons, it may be for visa reasons, it may be for family reasons. So there are many reasons why people may not be able to attend in person. And so we've decided to start an experiment in 2022 and 2023. That is, we encourage our organizers to organize their event at least in hybrid format, so that you can have some virtual attendance, and organizers receive then 10,000 euro of extra funding so that they can pay for the extra costs that they will incur by making their meeting hybrid. Okay, the second flavor are the EMBO fellowships. So there are our EMBO postdoctoral fellowships, which is your usual two-year postdoctoral fellowship. It is quite a prestigious fellowship, so it's highly coveted, and the success rate is concomitantly low, between 12 and 15%. We have also fortified our fellowships with additional perks, knowing how it is, what you need as a postdoc. We provide you with a 2-year contract. Scientists from India coming to Europe or the other way around are eligible for this. It's just you would not be eligible to go to another country, but any of the EMBC member states. We provide you with childcare allowance, with parental leave, allow part-time work, provide you with relocation allowance should you having to move, well, of course, which you will have to move for this fellowship. We have an annual fellows training meeting, and we will also fund participation in the EMBO Lab leadership course. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a couple of minutes. The second flavor that we have is the EMBO Scientific Exchange grants. These are for international short-term collaboration. So if you want to carry out a particular experiment and you don't have the expertise in your lab, then you can try to find another lab that would host you so that you can carry out the experiment, new collaborations, etc. This fellowship is actually much easier to get, so you have about a 50% success rate. So with a decent application, you are able to get such a fellowship. There's also no deadline, it's a continuous evaluation. So, consider this if you have a collaboration, if you would like to start a collaboration. The third flavor of fellowships which I would like to introduce are the core facility fellowships. These are to train core facility staff, and that includes technicians as well, in the latest techniques. That is, you can go to a core facility anywhere in the EMBC member states to learn the latest, to have your core facility staff educated in the latest techniques. So this is obviously very useful, and it covers short duration, short visits between 1 week and 30 days. Lab leadership courses, I would just like to say a few words about those, because those are also available in India specifically. We have developed these courses in 2006, in particular for young academic group leaders. And since then, we have trained thousands of scientists. The idea behind that is that as scientists, we are well trained in thinking about our scientific problems and writing grants and things like that, but we are not trained in leading people. And of course, as a group leader, it is important that you have a well-functioning group, because otherwise your career is at stake. So it is important that you learn how to, to understand what it means to be a leader, to develop your leadership style, to communicate with your students in a way that they can learn from you, that they can grow, because that's what you want. You want to make them into independent scientists, which also benefits your science, to develop your team, etc. And this is being taught in these courses, which are usually 4-day residential courses. These we are also doing in India, as I was saying, together with the India Alliance. And I think for last year, 4 courses were planned, or for this year, 4 courses were planned. But at the moment, it's a bit difficult, but we are working on getting these courses also to India. Actually, we've already had a number of them. And so we're just looking for new dates so that scientists in India can actually attend them as well. Last but not least, I wanted to tell you about the Young Investigator Network. So that's a network of some of the best young group leaders in Europe and beyond. And this comes in 3 flavors. There's the EMBO Young Investigator Program, the EMBO Installation Grants, and the EMBO Global Investigator Network. And these, I'll tell you a little bit more about them. I will not talk about the EMBO Installation Grants, because that is a particular flavor that is restricted to, that is only taking place in Europe at the moment, so you don't really need to know about that. The EMBO Young Investigator Program is scientists from all member states member states and associate member states are eligible to apply. It has been the first program that has specifically catered to the needs of young independent scientists. And the prerequisites are that you have to be within the first 4 years of your first independent lab, and you have to have a last author paper published. The benefits are, particularly the aim is to network and support these young scientists. And I'll tell you a bit more about the benefits in a minute. So there are 4 young investigators in India. So here are their names, and WOD is here in Delhi at your institute. The second permutation that I wanted to talk about is the EMBO Global Investigators. Those investigatorships are only available in our associate member states. And the reason why we brought that into play was, firstly, that we noticed that starting an independent lab in some of these member states takes longer than in other countries. So we have expanded the eligibility criteria towards the first 6 years an independent group leader, but the requirement for a last author publication is being upheld. So we started this program in 2019, and what we want, of course, is to support young group leaders in our associate member states. We want to network them with the young investigators and installation grantees, but we would also like to support a local network via the program members. For example, join group meetings with other scientists in India, for example, who are not global investigators, and other things. So here is the list of current global investigators in India, and we will have interviews in 2 weeks' time, so I'm sure that we will be able to see more scientists from India joining the network. Just to give you an example as to how we would like to support also local networks is, for example, Santosh Chauhan. He's actually now moved, the address is incorrect, he's now moved to Hyderabad. He has started a network of talks, a network of young scientists where talks are given on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. I'm sure many of you are aware of that and part of that. So we have developed a large number of benefits and of benefits for the members of the Young Investigator Network. Many of them, so this is a growing number, most of them have actually come about by talking to the members of the network who said, oh, it would be nice if we could do this, that, and the other thing, and we really need this, etc. And so this is then we think about how can we actually make this into something that is useful and available for everybody in the network. And so let me just, instead of going through this long thing, let me just go through a short list of some of the benefits to give you an idea of the flavor of what you can get when you are a member of the program. So of course we have meetings that we fund and that take place annually. So we have the annual meeting where all members of the network meet, and we have what we call sectoral meetings. So those are meetings that are aimed at that are self-organized by the young investigators themselves. And where they look at specific problems. For example, we have a microbiology sectoral meeting, we have a genome integrity sectoral meeting. So we have 15 different groupings that meet regularly every year or every other year. And you might say, well, there's enough conferences going on, so I don't need to join that. But this is different than your usual conference. So you have this small group of members of the network, present and former, and what people do there is actually they talk about their latest research. They want to have input as to the next question to answer or how to address a particular problem. So it is not like your usual scientific conference. So we also offer for members of the program support for the group. We have a PhD course that takes place annually for PhD students of young investigators. So this is a course that always receives stellar feedback. We pay a lab retreat for members of the program, so that you can talk about the latest research in a sort of secluded setting, and everybody just concentrates on that. We pay also for joint group meetings that you might want to have with another group that you're collaborating with, and yeah, just to mention a few of these things. We also provide you with training. I told you about the lab leadership courses. We also have what we call a biannual EGIB retreat, and that's where we have that's a week of training where we have we offer different courses on things that are important for you as a group leader. So we have things like negotiation skills, project management, team management, etc., etc. Then in terms of networking, we provide you with a mentor, or you can choose a mentor from the EMBO network. And yes, we cover joint group meetings that I mentioned before. I told you about that. And now I just would like to end with the announcement of a tour that we are going to have in India next year. So it's the EMBO India Research Partnership, where we will visit 9 different research institutes from 27th of February to 3rd of March. And here you see a list of research institutes. See, yours is one of that. So we will be visiting you on the 27th of February with a group of 4 young investigators, EMBO members who will be speaking at your institutes, their scientific talk. You can talk to them, discuss with them. There will be an EMBO editor, so they will also be training you. PhD student or whatever you would like to have. They will be talking about publications, etc. And there will be a trainer from EMBO Solutions who will talk about possibly scientific writing or whatever. So it's up to the leadership of your institute what will be taught there. And maybe you would like to talk to Aradita to let her know what your main interest would be. I would also like to tell you about the EMBO India's Bioscience webinars. Of course, you're all aware of India Bioscience. We have been working with them for very many years. We think it is a wonderful network throughout and a wonderful resource in India. So what we have done when COVID started is thinking about training webinars. So we've had several of these, and you can actually look at them on the India Bioscience webpage. They're all videoed, and we've been working with grant writing for PhD students and postdocs, grant writing for young investigators, and oral communication for PhD students and postdocs. The thing that we think is special about this is, of course, I told you about the lecture, the public lecture that is out there that you can view, but that's not all of that. That's not all. A subset of the participants, usually it's around 20, have been selected for further training. So after the initial lecture, they will be joining the lecturer and get specific training. They will have the opportunity to submit a grant, for example, in this, submit a draft of their grant, and the lecturer will correct them, will give them feedback on that, and then they can go back after 4 weeks and talk about the feedback, etc. So we think that this is much, at least for a small subset, much more effective than just talking about things. So what else? I just wanted to let you know, because of the war in Ukraine, which is a very big topic, obviously, here in Europe, we have been thinking about how we can help scientists. And so we have come up now with a fellowship that is offered to scientists at different career levels. So we'll have a first deadline in 15th of February. I wanted to tell you a bit about women in science, and that we have an annual award to highlight the excellent science done by female scientists in Europe. We hold conferences and sessions on different topics. So we've been working on quota, for example, gender roles and their impact in academia was our latest conference. And we also have reports, again, where we looked at quota in academia, and a report on an analysis in 2007 looked at why success rates of men and women for EMBO programs were at that time very different, and the reasons for that. We have what we call the EMBO e-talks. So the next one will take place in January. So that's a talk given by 1 or 2 young investigators or EMBO members, which will also be recorded and is open to everybody anywhere. So with this, I would like to thank you and hand over to you, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Gerlind, for the wonderful summary of all EMBO work. I'd request the participants to, kind of type in any questions you have, either in the chat box or in the question answer box. And while we wait for the questions, I think I'll take the opportunity and to talk to you about a couple of things. So this YIP and the installation grants that you are talking about. So I'm assuming, so both of them are for the investigators who have newly set up their labs, right?
Yeah.
what is the difference, or what is the advantage of one over other? If you could, kind of elaborate on that a bit, both these
Yeah,
grants.
I think you weren't talking about the installation grants, but about the Global Investigator Network, right?
The
GIN
Young
and the
Investigator Program, yeah.
Yeah. So what is the difference between the YIB and the GIN? So as I said, the Young Investigator Program, you have the 4 years restriction, versus for the Global Investigator Program, you have a 6 years time restriction. That is, you have a bit more time to set up your lab and get your last author paper published. So right, so the pool of potential applicants for the Global Investigator Program is larger. Right. And in terms of benefits, there are no real differences. So as I said, for the Global Investigator Program, we also, or network, we also allow specific funding for local activities. Right. So yeah, otherwise, there is not much of a difference. They all join the same network.
Okay, so for a person who has newly joined, say, set up his lab, would it be recommended for the Young Investigator Program? Or is there some other lab setup installation kind of a grant for that?
I think the competition in the Young Investigator Program is much higher than the competition in the Global Investigator Program. That's already, sorry. Scientists from 34 member states are eligible for the Young Investigator Program, but only 4 member states for the Global Investigator Network. And so your chances are much higher for the Global Investigator Network.
And
you can, I mean, sorry, just to preempt your next question. So once you've become a global investigator, you can still apply for the Young Investigator Program, as long as you are in the eligibility framework. So I would recommend actually to apply for both.
Thank you. Another one that I was, wondering while you were speaking was about the conferences that you fund, that you were saying both in person and hybrid mode conferences that have come up of late. So, like you say, that they get about 10,000 euro additional for the hybrid mode. So these would be based on what, or do you, kind of consider some amount of reduction in carbon footprints and all while opting for online? Do those make any differences to such applications?
Not to the application. So the committee only considers the scientific program and the networking activities that the organizers propose. But we do actually, yeah, and anybody who's been approved can ask for the 10,000 euros and run their conference in hybrid mode. So it's not a prerequisite at the moment. Personally, I hope it will be in the future, that every meeting that we support has actually to have a hybrid component. But that's my personal view. It has to go to the powers that be, right? The sustainability of meetings. So this is also something that we are working on. We are encouraging our organizers to make their meetings more sustainable in terms of encouraging participants to come by train if that is possible. Of course, I know that from India that will not be possible, but encourage some of the speakers to speak remotely, hold their meetings at a carbon, at a green certified venue, things like this. So we have a whole slew. This is something that we have now piloted since 2019, and we're now actually have refined. So we have a number of criteria and things. So basically, organizers can apply for a badge, that certifies that their meeting is actually a sustainable meeting.
Okay. I can now see 2 questions in the chat box, and both are from Partha. Maybe Partha, I'll unmute you and you can talk to her directly. Partha, please go ahead.
Hello, am I visible? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, you're audible. Thank you. I can hear you.
Hi, good afternoon. So I just wanted to know about 2 points regarding the fellowships, especially for PhD students. First point is I know that there is one program for short-term fellowships for 3 months. So is there any other fellowship program for PhD students which are longer than 3 months?
No, not in the EMBO programs.
Okay, and regarding that short-term fellowship, does EMBO support the PhD students to carry out research out of Europe?
No. So it's
Okay,
only
so that
for,
means
well,
that
I mean, it is in our associate member states. So if you were going to Singapore or to Taiwan, yes. But
okay,
not to the United States, if that was your question. No.
okay. Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Partha. Please do type in your questions if you have any. On that note, maybe Gerlind, have you thought of having any conferences or supporting some workshops for the research support personnel, people like us?
No, that would be something, well, yes and no. So we are, I didn't talk about the science policy program, but that's of course falls under science policy. So they are involved in many networks that actually talk about this. So for example, there would be, they have been very much involved in research integrity. How is that being taught and thought about in research institutes? So that's probably also something that you are concerned with. Also about research assessment, how do you guide your committees actually to make a good and objective assessment, etc. So these are the things that the science policy program is concerned with and is organized.
There is a science policy program, isn't it? I mean, I haven't come across that.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it would not be too. Yes, it is.
Okay,
I mentioned it shortly. Yes, and actually, it is, as I said, part of the women in science activities is part of that. But as I said, it's also about research assessment. It's about open science. It's all the things. It's about cell cultures and how cells that cell cultures often, the HeLa cell is not necessarily a HeLa cell, right? So it's not necessarily the same HeLa cell. Things like that is what they are looking at many different problems that either come up by the researchers, things like cell lines and biotechnology, research organisms that are manipulated by biotechnology, etc. So that kind of questions on the researcher side, but also on the admin side, as you were requesting about assessment, research integrity, things like that. Yeah, but not, I think you were talking about something similar to the India Alliance conference that you've recently.
Yeah, so that's not a conference, but I was just wondering if there's any workshop, hands-on or something that where people like us could kind of gain an insight.
No, not directly, as you say, only geared at particular problems. For example, research integrity or questions, research integrity, research assessment, etc. Yeah.
So I don't see any more questions up there. So if there's no further questions, maybe we can come to an end of the webinar. Thank you so much for your talk and answering whatever queries we had and letting us know about EMBO and the working. And I look forward to meeting you next year.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to coming to the Institute. Okay, and I hope and looking forward, we are all looking forward to receiving applications from scientists from India. We really would like to encourage them.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Okay.